taking my question. My name is Jeremy, and I'm proud to be from York County. And I'm proud to see so many of my friends and neighbors here in York County starting to demand action on climate change. There was an editorial in the New York Dispatch the other day talking about how there's been all the record rainstorms this summer. You know, people's basements getting flooded, all the damage. And we know that's only going to get worse with climate change over time. So I want to give you a chance to, you talked about the young and naive, I think alluded to in the beginning. I want to give you a chance to address it. And yeah, so am I young and naive for wanting a safe future so I can raise my family here in Pennsylvania? And what's your plan to move us to a 100% renewable energy economy so we can all have good jobs and a safe future?
Well, I appreciate you being here. And the question, you posed your question differently. So I don't consider you may be young, and I don't think, my young and naive comment was not meant to be an insult. I was asked a question about money I took from the fossil fuel industry. I'm 62 years old. The young lady that asked the question was 18. I have a little bit more experience than she does, and that wasn't meant to insult her in any way. And my 25-year-old daughter will tell me there's times that she's young and uninformed. So maybe I was a bad word or bad choice. Listen, climate change is happening, okay? And but let's be realistic. I don't have an agenda to go to a complete 100% renewable, energy program, because it's not realistic. I mean, I use trucks and waste trucks, and it's not feasible. It isn't going to be cost effective that we would have electric trucks. We've done a lot of research. We have stayed away from natural gas in our fleets for many reasons, and we continue to run diesel. And every 2 or 3 years, all the manufacturers are mandated by the EPA to change their emission, equipment on their trucks. And today, I could take you to Penn Waste. We could leave right here, get a white towel with Downy on it, and we could put it over the stack of the truck. And we could run that truck for 10 minutes, and we'll pull it off. You're still going to smell Downy. I've done it. I've been to Mack trucks. And the reason we don't run natural gas equipment because it doesn't have the torque in this area because of the hills up and down. It works great in Florida. It works great in Texas. But at the end of the day, we have subsidized a lot of the renewable, industries. And listen, if windmills can be income producing on their own, and we don't have to subsidize them, I'm all in favor of that. I think the Tesla cars are great, but also there's a large issue that we're going to have with the Tesla cars. Like at some point, what are you going to do with the disposal of all these batteries? That's going to create a whole other problem. So there's a lot of dialogue that we have to have. And listen, I as governor, if anybody thinks that as governor I can go into the governor's office and flip a switch and think that climate change, that I can change all this, I can't. But what I will tell you is, and this is very troubling to me, and I guarantee you this happened in the last 30 days, all this rain that we've had, the city of Harrisburg can't handle all the stormwater and the sewage. They dumped raw sewage into the Susquehanna. That's a big problem, and it's true, and it's happening. And it's happening in other cities, and I think we have a lot of outdated infrastructure in Pennsylvania, and I'm telling you, it's breathtaking. I was in a municipality in western PA, Monessen, which is down along the Ohio-West Virginia border. They need to rebuild. They need to replace their whole sewer infrastructure in the city, and it's going to cost $60 million. And I can tell you this: the residents, if you go there, there's no way they can afford this. So. Listen, I love to ski. I've watched how the snow patterns have changed, and probably the biggest winter ever of my life was when I was 16 years old. I don't know how many feet of snow we had, and it drifted, and I remember driving a Jeep that I had over a snow drift that had drifted over a Med-Ed truck, and the truck was under there, and you never knew it. But we don't have snowfall like snowfalls, but the rainfalls today are amazing. And so again, there's a lot of dialogue that has to happen. And I think that if you came to my company and I showed you what we did or what we do, we buy the latest and greatest, and most of our equipment comes from Mack trucks. If you go to Max Research and Development Center, they are spending a tremendous amount of time on emissions. And but we're all, listen, I would assume most everybody came by car today, and we put gas in our car, and if, there may be a Tesla or two in the audience, but this is, and I get it. I want to make sure in our job, I'm 62. I don't know how old you are, but I want to make sure that you're left, how old, 22? I want to make sure, listen, I want to make sure that you're left with, you know, the world that I have lived in. That's what's important. And I think we have a dialogue, but again, the end of the day, and I will tell you this quick story. If you remember, you know, during the Obama administration, on a Monday morning, the federal government wrote a check for $500 million to a solar company called Solyndra. And Friday afternoon, 5 days later, after they cashed the $500 check, they filed bankruptcy. And I believe a business needs to be self-sustaining. Not every business can be subsidized. So there's a lot of dialogue.
I'm just going to jump in and say, because I know there's been a lot of conversation about this. It is, I'm just getting feedback.
Yeah.
Climate change is happening. Man's activities, or man and woman's activities, children's activities, humans' activity is contributing, is impacting the rate of climate change. And I think the most important policy debate that we can have as citizens over the coming years and probably decades is what is the balance we can strike in addressing climate change, but also addressing the impact on our economy. And I'll just use extremes. I think none of us want to wreck the economy to move the 100-year degree from 0.8 degrees Celsius. I mean, maybe there's somebody who would take that policy prescription. I wouldn't, and I think the vast majority of people would not. On the same hand, we can't be in a position where we turn a blind eye and don't make investments, both as a society and also, of course, amazing technology and amazing companies out there addressing how we can use less and less greenhouse gas causing technologies. And so I think finding that balance between meeting the needs of the economy and all the people who live here and also the needs of the planet is a massive policy challenge. It's something that your generation is absolutely going to lead on, is already leading on. I think it's outstanding that you are. I mean, I remember at age 16 forcing my parents to drive me down. They didn't let me drive then. To drive me down into Reading to take stuff to a recycling center. Scott runs and has run for a long time a recycling business that diverts lots and lots of waste from landfills that would otherwise go to landfills into recyclables and then reused, either shipped overseas or recycled here. So you have two people who absolutely understand the balance that needs to be struck. I think there has been a lot of misinformation and misconceptions out there about whether, so I want to say it again, climate change is happening, human activities are contributing to it, and the policy debate that we need to have and continue to have, and I think it will be a really important policy debate, is what is the balance to strike? What is the balance to strike? And I'll just give you this, my view, which is outstanding companies and technologies will lead the way towards addressing how humans can impact less or have less impact on climate change. And here in Pennsylvania, most importantly, and I know this is not going to get cheers from everybody, the United States cut its carbon emissions over the last decade far more than the European Union, even though the European Union manages its economy, because we have natural gas. Our natural gas bounty, and I understand it's a fossil fuel, and I understand there's carbon emissions associated with it. Our natural gas bounty is leading the way in the world towards addressing emissions. And so we don't get enough credit for that as a nation, and this remarkable boom that's happened in our country over the last decade is at least bending the curve in terms of emissions. So let me just submit this to you, and I submit it to anybody who cares about the issue. There's no reason why Pennsylvania can't lead the nation in both clean technology, whether it's solar, wind, or other geothermal or other reusable, renewable sources, but also as part of that, lead the world in using our natural gas bounty here to to reduce carbon emissions both for the United States and all the developing countries around the world.
Thank you.